Picture this. It's 1944. The fate of the free world hangs in the balance. And right now, across Europe, Africa, and the Pacific, women are doing the impossible. A woman with a wooden leg is outsmarting the Gestapo. A showgirl is smuggling secrets in her sheet music. A nurse is performing surgery in a prison camp, weighing just 86 pounds. A Codebreaker's discovery will sink Germany's most fearsome battleship. These aren't fictional superheroes. These are real women. Women who were told they weren't strong enough, smart enough, brave enough. Women who proved everyone wrong. Today, I'm counting down 10 of the most incredible women of World War II. 10 stories you've probably never heard. 10 women who changed historically. And trust me, their stories will blow your mind. Let's kick off our countdown at number 10 with a woman whose weapon wasn't a gun or a code machine. It was science. Mary Sears was an oceanographer. She studied the ocean, currents, tides, temperatures, depths. When the U.S. entered the war, the Navy realized they had a problem. They needed someone who understood the ocean. They needed Mary. Mary joined the Waves, women accepted for volunteer emergency service. She was assigned to the hydrographic office. Her job? Create maps and intelligence about ocean conditions for amphibious landings. Now, think about D-Day, June 6, 1944, the largest amphibious invasion in history. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of men, all heading toward the beaches of Normandy. Do you know what made that possible? Mary's team. They provided critical data, tide tables for the Normandy beaches, ocean depth charts, current patterns, beach composition. This information determined when and where the invasion could happen. Without Mary's oceanographic intelligence, D-Day could have been a catastrophe. After the war, Mary continued her groundbreaking work. She became one of the first female officers in the U.S. Naval Reserve. But during the war, she was just doing her job, mapping oceans, saving lives. Coming in at number 9, a woman who flew closer to the front lines than most soldiers ever did. Alida Lutz. Born in Michigan in 1915 to German immigrant parents, the youngest of 10 children. A superior athlete who loved bowling, tennis, and ice skating, she became a nurse. And when the Army created a new program for flight nurses, Alida volunteered. Here's the thing. Only 2% of nurses passed the rigorous pilot physical exam. Alida was one of them. Flight nurses had one of the most dangerous jobs in the war. They flew in C-47 cargo planes, without Red Cross markings, right to the front lines. They loaded wounded soldiers, kept them stable during flight, flew them to safety. No doctors, no backup. Just the nurse, the wounded, and the sky. Alida flew with the 802nd Medical Air Evacuation Squadron, the first team of flight nurses deployed overseas. North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France. She completed 196 missions, evacuated over 3,500 men, logged 814 flight hours, more than any other flight nurse. On one day alone, she completed 4 sorties. Her fellow nurses called her Lutzy. Soldiers called her an angel. November 1st, 1944. Alida was on an evacuation flight from Italy to France. 15 wounded men on board. The plane flew into a storm near Lyon. It crashed. No survivors. Alida Lutz became the first American military woman killed in a combat zone in World War II. She was 28 years old. Posthumously, Alida received the Distinguished Flying Cross, the first woman to receive it in war, the Purple Heart, an air medal with 4 oak leaf clusters. General George Marshall ordered that a hospital ship be named after her. The USAHS Alida E. Lutz, the largest mercy ship afloat at the time. In 1990, the Saginaw Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Center was renamed the Alida E. Lutz Center, the first time a medical center was named after a woman killed in a combat zone. Alida Lutz is buried in the Rhone American Cemetery in France. She's the only woman buried there. At number 8, we meet a woman who sank a battleship without ever leaving England. Jane Hughes was 19 years old, a London debutante. She just spent 6 months in Switzerland learning German when her mother called her home for debutante season. Jane thought it was a waste of time. Then a friend invited her to apply to something called the Bletchley Park Project. Jane had no idea what it was, but it sounded more interesting than tea parties. She ended up in Hut 4, a cramped, dark decoding room. Poor lighting, poor heating, long hours. At Bletchley Park, 8,000 women worked to crack Nazi communications. When Britain's codebreakers cracked the daily Enigma code, Jane and other women would receive the keys and type out encoded messages on modified Typex machines. It was tedious, it was exhausting, and then, on May 25, 1941, everything changed. A message came through. Jane decoded it. It was from a Luftwaffe general whose son was aboard the Bismarck, Germany's most fearsome battleship. The message revealed the Bismarck's location and destination. Jane immediately recognized its importance. She relayed the intel to the Navy. 2 days later, May 27, 1941, the British Navy found and sank the Bismarck. Over 2,000 Germans were killed. It was Bletchley Park's first major victory, proof that code-breaking could change the war. And Jane? She couldn't tell anyone. Not her husband, not her children. Not for 50 years. Because of the Official Secrets Act, Jane Hughes Fawcett, who became an opera singer and architecture preservationist after the war, couldn't reveal what she'd done until the 1990s. When she finally could, she said, "We felt slightly ashamed of having only done Bletchley, like also-rans. My grandchildren were very surprised. Jane, you helped sink the Bismarck. You were not an also-ran." Number 7 brings us to a woman who chose freedom over fame. In 1937, Nazi officials approached the German-born film star with an offer. Return to Germany, star in propaganda films, become the face of the Third Reich. Marlene Dietrich said no. She became an American citizen in 1939, and then she went to war against her homeland. Marlene worked with the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, recording anti-Nazi propaganda in German. Songs like Lily Marlene became hugely popular with German troops, despite Nazi efforts to ban them. The U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey said her broadcasts were just as devastating to German morale as an air raid. But Marlene didn't stop there. She joined the USO and went to the front lines. North Africa, Italy, France, Germany. Other performers joked that she was always trying to get us killed because Marlene insisted on performing as close to the fighting as possible. She fought off influenza, slept in tents, suffered frostbite. She performed over 500 shows for Allied troops. Director Billy Wilder joked that Marlene was at the front lines more than General Eisenhower. When asked why she risked her life, Marlene responded in German, "Aus Anstand," out of decency. America awarded her the Medal of Freedom. France gave her the Légion d'honneur. Belgium made her a Knight of the Order of Leopold. When she returned to Germany after the war, Germans called her a traitor. Protesters chanted, "Marlene, go home." She'd chosen freedom over fascism, truth over propaganda. And some people never forgave her for it. Hold on, we're only at number 7, and already these stories are incredible, right? If you're hooked, you need to hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to meet a pilot who organized 1,000 women flyers, a spy who smuggled secrets in sheet music, and more. Don't miss the top 6. Subscribe now. Let's continue the countdown. At number 6, a woman who proved the best disguise is hiding in plain sight. Josephine Baker was the most photographed woman in the world, an American expatriate who became France's biggest star. She danced in a banana skirt. She walked her pet cheetah through Paris on a diamond-studded leash. And she was a spy for the French resistance. Born in poverty in St. Louis, Josephine escaped to France in 1925. She fell in love with a country that treated her with respect, something America never did. When France declared war on Germany in 1939, French intelligence officer Jacques Abte approached Josephine with a proposition. Would she use her celebrity to gather intelligence? Josephine raised her champagne glass. "To France," she said. "I am ready to give my life." And she meant it. Josephine attended diplomatic parties at Italian and Japanese embassies. She charmed German, Italian, and Japanese officials. They talked freely around her. Who would suspect the beautiful entertainer? She wrote notes in invisible ink on her sheet music, pinned intelligence inside her clothing. "Who would dare search Josephine Baker?" she said with a laugh. When the Nazis suspected her chateau was hiding resistance fighters, they came to search. Josephine had several fighters hiding in her basement. She smiled. She charmed them. They left without searching. Under the guise of international tours, Josephine traveled across Europe and North Africa, gathering intelligence on Axis troop movements, airfields, and harbors. She helped plan Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa. She was hospitalized for 18 months with a serious infection. American diplomats and resistance members held meetings at her bedside. From her hospital balcony, she watched American troops arrive in Morocco. After D-Day, Josephine returned to Paris wearing her French Air Auxiliary Lieutenant's uniform. She sold her jewelry to buy food for starving Parisians. France awarded her the Croix de Guerre, the Medal of the French Resistance, and made her a Chevalier of the Légion d'honneur. Years later, in 1963, Josephine stood at the March on Washington alongside Martin Luther King Jr., the only official female speaker. She wore her Free France uniform, and she spoke truth. "I have walked into the palaces of kings and queens, but I could not walk into a hotel in America and get a cup of coffee." And that made me mad. Halfway through our countdown, at number 5. Prepare yourself for a story of survival and sacrifice. 3 weeks after Pearl Harbor, Japanese forces bombed Camp John Hay in the Philippines. Army nurse Ruby Bradley was there. She tried to escape through the mountains, but on December 28, 1941, she was captured. Ruby became the first Army nurse POW of the war. For the next 37 months, Ruby was a prisoner. First at Camp Holmes, then at Santo Tomas internment camp in Manila. The conditions were brutal. Half a cup of rice in the morning, half a cup at night. That was it. Ruby's weight dropped to 86 pounds. But you know what she did? She broke into the old hospital and stole morphine and surgical instruments, risking execution. She performed 230 major operations, delivered 13 babies, without proper instruments. She saved her food rations for starving children. When they cried at night, she gave them what little she had. Her baggy clothes, from weight loss, made it easier to smuggle contraband past guards. The Japanese were amazed at what she could do without proper tools. On February 3, 1945, U.S. troops stormed the gates. Ruby was free. But her service wasn't over. Ruby went to Korea. She served as chief nurse for the 171st Evacuation Hospital, then chief nurse for the 8th Army, supervising 500 nurses. In one famous incident, Chinese forces surrounded her evacuation hospital. Ruby refused to leave until every single wounded soldier was loaded onto the plane. She was the last one to board. In 1958, Ruby became one of the first 3 Army nurses promoted to colonel. She retired in 1963 with 34 medals and citations, 2 Legion of Merits, 2 Bronze Stars, the Florence Nightingale Medal. She's one of the most decorated women in U.S. military history. When asked about her accomplishments, Ruby said it was just all in a day's work. Ruby Bradley died in 2002. She's buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Number 4 is the woman history almost forgot, but shouldn't have. Mancy Harkness Love earned her pilot's license at 16. By 1940, she was already proposing that women could ferry military aircraft. The military ignored her. Then Pearl Harbor happened. Suddenly, Colonel William Tunner remembered Nancy's proposal. He appointed her to his staff and asked her to recruit female pilots. Within months, Nancy had assembled 28 experienced female pilots, the originals, and created the Women's Auxiliary Ferrying Squadron. Nancy and her co-pilot Betty Gillies became the first women certified to fly the B-17 Flying Fortress. When the organizations merged into WASP, Nancy became head of all ferrying operations. She was certified in 19 military aircraft. She flew the Douglas C-54 Skymaster, the North American B-25 Mitchell, planes most people had never even seen. And she did it all while fighting for recognition that never quite came. Nancy died of cancer in 1976, just 1 year before WASP pilots received veteran status. She never got to see the recognition she deserved. But her legacy? It opened the skies for every woman who came after. We've reached the top 3. And these women, they're legends. A princess who became Britain's first female wireless operator and died saying, "Freedom." A pilot who put 1,000 women in the sky when the military said it was impossible. And a spy with a wooden leg who became the most wanted woman in Nazi-occupied France. Let's meet them. At number 3, a woman who seemed like the last person who should be a spy. Noor Inayat Khan was a princess, literally. The daughter of an Indian Sufi mystic and an American mother, she wrote children's books. She was a pacifist. She played the harp. And she became Britain's first female wireless operator sent into occupied France. In June 1943, Noor was sent to Paris. Her job? Transmit intelligence back to London. The problem? Wireless operators had the most dangerous job. The Gestapo could detect their signals. Most lasted only 6 weeks before capture. Noor lasted over 3 months. She carried a 30-pound suitcase radio. She moved constantly. Basements, attics, anywhere she could transmit for a few precious minutes before the Germans triangulated her position. Can you imagine? Crouching in a dark attic, typing frantically, knowing German soldiers could kick down the door any second. By October 1943, most of her network had been arrested. London offered to bring her home. Noor refused. She was the only wireless operator left in Paris. If she left, the entire operation would collapse. Someone betrayed her. On October 13, 1943, the Gestapo arrested her. Noor tried to escape. Twice. She never broke. Not once. Despite brutal interrogation, she never gave the Nazis a single piece of information. They eventually sent her to Pforzheim prison, where she was kept in chains for 10 months. On September 12, 1944, 3 months after D-Day, Noor was transferred to Dachau concentration camp. The next morning, September 13th, she was executed with a single shot. Her last word was reportedly, "Liberté," freedom. Britain posthumously awarded her the George Cross, the highest civilian decoration. France gave her the Croix de Guerre. A statue of her stands in London now. A princess who chose courage over safety. A pacifist who fought the ultimate evil. Number 2. The woman who shattered the glass ceiling at 20,000 feet. Jacqueline Cochran didn't just want to be a pilot. She wanted to be the best pilot. Before the war, she was already setting aviation records. But when America entered World War II, Jackie saw an opportunity. She approached General Hap Arnold with a radical idea. "Let me train women to fly military aircraft." Arnold was skeptical, but America was desperate. In 1942, Jackie created the Women's Flying Training Detachment. It merged with Nancy Love's Women's Auxiliary Ferrying Squadron to become the Women Air Force Service Pilots, WASP. Jackie was named director. Here's what happened next. Over 25,000 women applied. Only 1,830 were accepted. 1,074 earned their wings. These women flew every type of aircraft in the Army Air Force's arsenal. B-17 bombers, B-29 Superfortresses, P-51 Mustangs. They ferried 12,650 aircraft, flew over 60 million miles. They test flew repaired planes, the most dangerous missions. They towed targets for gunnery practice. They trained male combat pilots. And you know what the military did? Refused to call them soldiers, paid them as civilians, denied them military benefits. When 38 WASP pilots died in service, their families had to pay to bring their bodies home. In 1944, when Congress voted on whether to militarize the WASP, the bill failed. The program was disbanded in December 1944. It wasn't until 1977, 33 years later, that WASP pilots finally received veteran status. In 2010, they were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. Jacqueline Cochran went on to become the first woman to break the sound barrier. She held more speed, altitude, and distance records than any pilot, male or female, at the time of her death. But she always said her proudest achievement was leading the WASP. And finally, number 1, the most incredible of them all. Imagine being hunted by Klaus Barbie, the Butcher of Lyon, one of the most brutal Nazi officers in France, a man obsessed with finding you. Now imagine you have an 8-pound wooden leg strapped to your body. Most people would hide. Virginia Hall? She went to work. Born in Baltimore in 1906, Virginia wanted to be a diplomat. She spoke French, German, Italian. But in 1933, a hunting accident in Turkey cost her left foot. The State Department rejected her diplomatic dreams. Amputees can't be diplomats, they said. They were about to regret that decision. When France fell to the Nazis, Virginia became one of Britain's first female spies. The Special Operations Executive sent her into occupied France in August 1941. She built safe houses, organized resistance networks. She even broke 12 SOE agents out of prison by smuggling tools inside sardine tins. The Gestapo called her the Limping Lady. Klaus Barbie, who tortured and killed thousands, desperately wanted to capture her. The Nazis distributed wanted posters calling her the most dangerous of all Allied spies. By November 1942, the net was closing. Virginia had to escape, so she crossed the Pyrenees Mountains. In winter, 50 miles through snow, with her prosthetic leg, which she'd nicknamed Cuthbert. At one point, she radioed London. "Cuthbert is giving me trouble." London, not knowing Cuthbert was her leg, replied, "If Cuthbert is troublesome, eliminate him." She made it to Spain, and then she went back to France. This time, she disguised herself as an elderly peasant woman, dyed her hair gray, ground down her teeth. She milked cows, sold cheese to German soldiers, and gathered intelligence. By D-Day, Virginia Hall was commanding 1,500 French resistance fighters. Her forces blew up 4 bridges, derailed trains, killed 150 German soldiers, and captured 500 more. On September 27, 1945, Virginia Hall received the Distinguished Service Cross, the only civilian woman to receive it during World War II. President Truman wanted a public White House ceremony. Virginia declined. She was still operational. She joined the CIA and served for 15 more years until mandatory retirement. Virginia Hall died in 1982 at age 76. For decades, her story remained classified. But now we know. The woman who refused to let a wooden leg stop her, the woman who outsmarted the Gestapo, the woman who changed the course of World War II. Klaus Barbie hunted her for years. He never even learned her real name. 10 women, 10 incredible stories. From number 10, Mary Sears, who mapped the oceans for D-Day, to number 1, Virginia Hall, who outsmarted the Gestapo with a wooden leg. These women were told they weren't strong enough, smart enough, brave enough. They proved the world wrong. Some received recognition, some died in obscurity, some couldn't speak about their service for decades. But they changed history. And now? Now you know their names. If these stories moved you, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me which woman's story impacted you most. Was it number 1? Number 5? Let me know. And remember, every picture has a tale, and we're here to frame it. Thanks for watching.